Didn't have a lot of attention. The eldest was the eldest. It's the Middle East. The eldest is the eldest. And the youngest is the baby. And if you remember the picture, I was the darker one with the curly hair. And they were the ones with the fairer skin and the blonde, dirty hair. So they got much more attention, which is rarer and more exotic in the Middle East and Egypt as well. So they got much more attention than I did, and they didn't have a lot of attention. I felt alienated. So that was my way to find meaning. That was my way to try to gain some attention. I wanted to become the best at everything. You know, when my mom was trying to feed us, I wanted to become the best eater. You know, in studying, I wanted to become the best student. Hating the Jew, I wanted to become the best hater. So I really, really invested all of my emotions into this. And I got obsessed with that idea of me becoming a superhero by defeating the super Jewish villain. And it's ultimately that obsession, that indoctrination of hate, that radicalization that is responsible for this. This is very recent. This is from August 2009. It's not the only incident. It's actually quite often. This is from a security camera in the old city of Jerusalem. As you can see, there are Israeli guards, policemen, just guarding everything. And then we'll see two 14-year-old Palestinians with knives, trying to stab them. He got shot. 14-year-olds. Children. This is not because of anything that Israel does. This is because of the cartoons they just watched, the books that I just told you about the hatred and about the indoctrination from a very early age. 14-year-old children. Thank God I was born in Egypt. If I was born in the Palestinian territories, I would have been one of those children, because I was obsessed with killing the Jews. Those children will never have another birthday. They will never watch another movie. They will never play another video game. They will never read another comic book. They will never have a girlfriend. They will never get married. They will never go to college, because of the hatred and anti-Semitism that unfortunately became a part of the natural culture of the Arab world. I'll go back to my life. I'm 14. I'm obsessed. I want to help the world. I want to save the world from the Jewish evil villains. What am I going to do? I'm in Egypt. They're all the way in Palestine. You know, I watched TV during the Second Intifada, and things like on fire, right? Al Jazeera tells you, oh, Jews are killing Muslims every day. They're killing Muslim babies, killing Muslim children. You know, and I really want to help. And I wasn't a tough kid. I didn't play soccer and that, you know, what do you call it? Is it jock? I was like one of the lonely nerd kids in the background. I was very chubby. I wanted to become the best eater, so I ate a lot as well. So I wasn't tough. So I decided that the best thing I could do is I can go online and teach myself the dark language of Mordor, Hebrew. And that way I can decode the evil plans of the Jews, right? I can find out what they are talking about. I can help the world become a better place. So I did that. It turned out to be quite talented with languages. In a few years, I was able to read things in English and Hebrew. That was at an early stage of the internet. I want to remind you that YouTube started in 2007. Not a lot of things were in Arabic then, everything. But there were things in English and in Hebrew. So I started for the first time exploring a different narrative and a different story than the stories that have been told. I started reading the Jewish history not as a story of a super villain nation that's just all capable, that omnipresent, that can do anything they want. But what shocked me is that the story of the Jewish people is the story of a very small minority that's been hated, persecuted across history, across centuries, across the nations, and always been murdered by one nation after the other. And that's very shockingly different than the story about the supervillain nation. I started reading about the Jews not as the people who came and stole land, but as an indigenous Middle Eastern nation. Hebrew is very close to Arabic. The names of many towns and cities and rivers or hills of the region are in Hebrew names. They belong to that region. They are from the Middle East. And then I started to understand and read about the modern history of the Middle East and the Ottoman Empire and the very turbulent rise of nation states in the Middle East in general. And I discovered that just the Israeli flag, it outdates the Palestinian flag by 2 decades. That the state of Israel is older than many other Arab states in the region. And that the state of Israel is based on secular values that do not differentiate between Arabs and Jews, and that Arabs in Israel have better freedoms and better lives than Arabs in my own home country of Egypt or any other country in the Middle East. This reality shocked me to the bone because that was very, very different than what I thought. I looked at Israeli education and they expected them to be teaching their kids to hate all Arabs, the same way I was taught to hate all Jews. And then I was shocked to find that that's not true. There was not a switch. You can't really, many times, especially in the age of internet arguments and debates, we have that illusion that like you're gonna type in the perfect argument. You know, once you press enter, you're gonna, you know, people are gonna change their minds and you're gonna say them. That's not true. It was residual change. It was very painful. It was very slow. It shocked me so much that I lost my faith. I stopped really believing in Islam as a religion, which is a capital offense in most of the Muslim world. It was really hard, but I was closeted and didn't tell anybody. And then I decided that I want to go study Hebrew at Cairo University. Our departments of Hebrew and Jewish studies in Egyptian universities. And by that point, my unhealthy obsession with the Jews had turned into curiosity. So I decided, you know, that's what I'm going to do for a living, and now I understand the world much better. And they owe all of this to learning Jewish history, to the Hebrew language, and they want to continue doing that. So I went, and now I'm going to show you some of the professors I had here. The professor of Hebrew.
يعني هي في الدم في عيد الفصح بيعملوا نوع من انواع الفطير بيكون مختلط بالدم.
دم حقيقي؟
دم بشري.
بيجيبوه منين؟
بيجيبوه منين؟ معرفش والله.
This is the national Egyptian TV. This is the government-operated TV channel. I was horrified. I went to college to learn Hebrew to find out, first of all, I know Hebrew better than the professors. Not just that I know Hebrew better, that most of what happens in college is a more articulation of the anti-Semitism that just goes around in all of the culture. Those are the intellectuals. Those are the thinkers. Those are PhD professors. Egypt is a country like many other countries in the Middle East, and it's not in the worst state. It's a poor country. It's a broken economic system, broken education system, 25% general illiteracy rate, much higher amongst women. People sit in front of the TV and they see this, and he's the expert. Who would know better about Jews? And they believe what they say. Here is another professor. I had to take maybe 4 classes with him. He hated me. He heard my grades badly. His name is Amr Alem. And every time I see him, I feel pain that I had to flee my country and to seek refuge. And he now got promoted to the head of the department. He taught me modern Hebrew literature.
مسألة العنف في الشخصية الإسرائيلية أو الروح العدوانية في الشخصية الإسرائيلية هي موجودة يعني في الجينات اليهودية. على مدار التاريخ منذ 48 وحتى وقتنا هذا ونحن نشاهد الجند الإسرائيلي وهو يصوب البندقية في صدر الأطفال وفي صدر النساء وفي صدر الشباب التنكيل بالفلسطيني ثم يتصورون ويلتقطون الصور مع يعني مع الجثث الفلسطينية حتى أن هناك بعض المشاهد التي كنا نراها وهم يقطعون رؤوس بعض الفلسطينيين ثم يفرحون ويسعدون بالتصوير مع هذا.
It's basically telling people that Israel is ISIS, right? Like that's what. So it was extremely difficult. My sadness and my disappointment and my parents and my imams and my school became angry. I was angry at everybody that this is what's going on. And I can't even challenge it. If I try to challenge it at school, I get threatened by the professors that they can't affect my future. Mein Kampf was even read, reading in class about Hebrew, read as a great text. It remains a very popular book, unfortunately. If you walk downtown Cairo, there are a lot of vendors for newspapers. You will find them carrying, usually, Mein Kampf and Particles of Zion. I'm sorry. And then I started to look at the culture in general. And I found that there's nothing real. This is a quote from Bernard Lewis. They said, while visits to Arab bookshops or to religious bookshops in Turkey reveal a wide range of anti-Semitic literature, any kind of corrective is lacking. The Arab reader seeking guidance on such topics as Jewish history, religion, thought, and literature will find virtually nothing. And that was my experience. There was nothing. If I didn't know Hebrew and English and I had free access to the internet, I would have found nothing. I wanted to break the stereotypes. I wanted to break the anger. So I decided to do something very daring and to visit the Israeli embassy, to meet an actual Jew, an actual Israeli. I wanted to visit the Israeli Academic Center, which was part of the embassy. It was supposed to be part of the diplomatic mission. And it took me a long time to take that courageous decision because I was breaking a taboo, one of the greatest taboos in the Arab culture. And I went there, and I met my first Israeli ever, my first Jew. He was a security guard, and he was shockingly 100% human. It was kind of funny too. And it was amazing. I had a great time there. They gave me free books, they gave me newspapers, they gave me all what I wanted. And I walked out euphoric. Absolutely euphoric. I just broke, and you can't imagine how it felt. It's just like being out of the closet. I felt that I'm finally free. I broke the taboo. I saw a Jew, I saw an Israeli. I made that connection, that human, real connection. Just as I stepped out of the building, I get stopped by Egyptian state security. Egyptian state security is the equivalent of the American NSA. Did you see any Jews there? Did you talk to any Israelis? Did you talk to anybody? How dare you come here? Didn't you know that Egyptians are banned from here? I tried to, bullshit my way out, basically. I just wanted to see what those pigs are saying about us. I wanted to see what those pigs are writing. They didn't believe me, but they just questioned me for 15 minutes and let me go. And then my friends started telling me that they were receiving phone calls from state security asking them about me. Now, state security is terrifying. They have a horrendous reputation of what they do to dissidents and activists. And then I receive a call from them from a blocked number. Hello, we're state security. We don't want you to visit the academic center again. We don't want you to see Israelis. We don't want you to talk to Israelis. We're not happy about the passion that you're pursuing this with. We don't want you to read any of this. I started to push back. That was my first confrontation with authority ever, and then they started to really threaten me on the phone. You know what we go to do to people? Don't become a problem for us. And then I tell them, okay, I'm going to do what you do, and I hang up the phone. And then I sit down and realize that I can't stop. Learning Hebrew became who I am. I'm not Jewish, I'm not converting, I'm not Israeli. But now I understand reality. I understand the world better. I am who I am because of Hebrew. I stopped believing in Islam, something that can lead to your end. You can get this penalty in 13 different Muslim countries for leaving Islam. Because of this. I'm much a different person than the person that my parents were trying to raise because of learning Hebrew. I can't stop doing this. So I went online and I wrote what happened. It was picked up by Ynet, it's a major Israeli news outlet. They sent me an email, they interviewed me in the email, and then they published what happened. And if you still Google it, you'll find it. Egyptian student, Hebrew, Israeli Academic Center, Cairo. It'll be the first result because there's only one. And all what I said, I didn't bash Islam, I didn't bash Egypt, I didn't bash the government. I was really a kid then. All what I said, I love Hebrew, I love learning about Israel, I wish things were normal. 3 days later, state security, they come to my house, they arrest me and my family. They send us to an interrogation center, me and my father. They sent us to an interrogation center. My father was shocked, he had no idea what was going on in my life, just thought I was in college. And then they confronted us. My father was ashamed. I was ashamed that I got my father in trouble. Kept us for hours, asked us questions, interrogated me on everything. My father kept apologizing. They eventually let us go. And then my family did what you call here in the US an intervention. What's wrong with you? So I came out. I'm not really Muslim anymore. I don't believe this about Christians. I don't believe this about Jews. I don't believe this about women. And I remember how incredulous my father was, hearing all of this. He could never have imagined that this would have happened from his own son, in his own house. My brother was actually now a religious imam. Tried to attack me physically, and my uncle. They kicked me out of the house, and that was the end of my relationship with my family. That was in the beginning of 2010. The rest of the year was quite a turbulent year with a lot of interrogations from state security. And by the end of 2010, I was arrested by Egyptian military intelligence and being interrogated on the basis of being a spy, a Mossad agent, a Zionist agent, and all of that. At the beginning, I was really shocked. I was profoundly disoriented. I didn't know what was going on. I was just being me, right? And then I discovered that they genuinely believed I was a spy. They genuinely thought there is no way that he thinks that on his own. There is no way that these are his ideas. He must be paid. He must be a spy. The worst 2.5 months of my life, beatings every day, torture. You Jew lover, who are those Jews who you love? Who's going to save you now? I thought I was never going to go out. They told me, like, you'll never get out of here. But in December 2010, he released me. He told me, we never want to hear about this, we never want to read about this, just get out of here. I was devastated. I wanted to stay away from everything. I didn't want to do anything. But then a month later, the Arab Spring started. A big protest movement started in Cairo. And in 18 days, it ousted the president. So I joined them at the Tahrir Square, the center of the revolution, because I believed the only chance that I can live freely is to change the government, is to get a new regime that can tolerate me learning the wrong language and talking to the wrong people. Things were euphoric, everybody felt promising because of, there's a reason they called it the Arab Spring. There was a lot of optimism at the beginning, but soon enough, the Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamist political organization, started to come to power. Anti-Semitism became worse. There was an incident in 2011, I don't know if you remember it, where tens of thousands of people attacked the Israeli embassy, the same one that I visited, and tried to lynch this Israeli staff inside. You can find videos on YouTube of people with sledgehammers, full of grudge, trying to break the wall in order to get those people hiding inside. Violence against Christians rose even further. Hostility towards the United States. There was, during the Benghazi time, there was also a big demonstration against the American embassy in Cairo. The American embassy was evacuated, and demonstrators climbed up, took down the American flag, and put up the flag of Al-Qaeda, right at the center of Cairo. Things were not looking good. State security started to come after me again. I went to work one day. I found myself that I got fired because state security came and made them fire me. They started to threaten me more with arrest. And eventually, before the elections, it was very obvious that their presidential candidate, Mohamed Morsi, the Israeli leader, was going to win. So my Christian friends helped me, and I left, and I came here, applied for political asylum. It was extremely difficult. I didn't know anybody in the United States. I was homeless for the first 2 months. I literally had nothing but the ticket and the $700 that my friends gave me. But this is an amazing country, and eventually things became better. My asylum case was quite easy because of my history and what was going on. I received my asylum, I received working authorization, and things started to become better. And eventually I succeeded in doing everything that everybody tried to stop me from doing. I taught Hebrew, I talk about Israel, I work in Jewish education, which is wild. Had you asked me 10 years ago, what do you think your future would be, I would never said this. I'm very proud of what I'm doing, and now I work with Stand With Us in order to tell people my story and talk to them about Israel and combat anti-Semitism. And I had the privilege finally, after I got American citizenship, which is one of the best things that ever happened in my life. I had the privilege of visiting Israel in 2008, and I was absolutely amazed. I was absolutely amazed. I felt I'm back home. It's the Middle East. Israel has this marketing problem where people see it as like a Western European, which is really, really not. You go there and walk and find brown people yelling at each other, which I love. That's home. Israel is completely a Middle Eastern country. The arts, the music, the smells, the food, the mannerisms, the warmth, the culture. And I was very amazed to be there because this was the first time in my life, being a native Middle Eastern, spent almost all of his life in the Middle East, grew up there, was the first time ever for me to experience the Middle East with freedom. With women free, with Christians free, with Jews free, Muslims free. Everybody free to say what they want, to do what they want, to say what they think. And it was absolutely amazing. And only there, when I went there, I knew why I did everything I did, and why it was absolutely worth it. Because even if I'm not a Jew, I'm not Israeli, I believe that Israel is the best thing that the Middle East has. And I'm not proud, right now there is not much to be proud of as a Middle Eastern in the Middle East, other than Israel. So even being an Arab and a Muslim, I'm very proud that Israel is there, that they are my neighbors and they're cousins and we live in the same neighborhood. Because that gives me hope that other Arabs can also one day become Israel.